Welcome to Dreamtime Science, where curiosity meets tranquility and knowledge flows like a gentle stream. Here we explore the wonders of our universe at a pace that soothes the mind. I've been thinking about pain lately, not just how it hurts, but why it's actually such an important part of our lives. There's something remarkable about how our bodies use pain like a quiet alarm system, guiding us away from danger and helping us heal. Tonight, I'd love to share some surprising ways pain isn't just a pesky feeling, but a kind of hidden friend we often overlook. If you find peace in these nocturnal discoveries, consider becoming a regular visitor to our quiet corner of science. Share in the comments what topic you'd love to dream about next. Before we begin, create your sanctuary, nestle into your chosen spot, let your muscles soften, and allow your breath to find its natural rhythm. In the soft hush of the night, as the world dims and your thoughts begin to unfurl, consider the mysterious nature of pain. It is a paradox that threads through all existence, a guardian and a tormentor, a signal of harm and yet sometimes a harbinger of healing. Pain is as old as life itself, embedded in the sinews of every creature that has ever stirred from the primordial ooze. It is not merely a sensation, but a story, a language written in the body's own script, a narrative that shapes lives, cultures, and even the wildest reaches of our imagination. Let us wander for a time through an imagined garden. The air is cool with the memory of dew, and moonlight drapes the foliage in a gauzy silver. This garden is not a tranquil Eden, but a terrain of contrasts, a living allegory for the nature of pain itself. Step carefully, for the path is lined with both roses and brambles. Each petal, velvet and delicate, offers comfort, while nestled beneath, the thorns lie in wait, sharp as memory. Here, sensation is heightened, the cool brush of a leaf, the sting of a needle-fine thorn, the sudden ache of a misstep. This garden asks you to notice, to feel, to be present in each moment. To understand pain, we must first marvel at its universality. From the smallest insect to the largest mammal, pain is a signal, a warning, a force that demands attention. It is the body's way of drawing a line around danger, of compelling us to withdraw a hand from the flame, to rest an injured limb, to nurse a wound. Without pain, life would be perilous. Creatures would blunder into harm, unaware of the silent toll on their bodies. Yet pain is not always so straightforward. It is as complex and layered as the mind that perceives it. Across the centuries, pain has been woven into the fabric of human culture. It is present in ancient myths, where heroes endure trials by fire and ordeal by blade. It echoes in religious rituals, in the deliberate seeking of pain as penance or catharsis. In literature and cinema, pain is both a crucible and a teacher, a force that shapes destinies. Consider the tales of Prometheus, chained to a rock as his liver is devoured each day, or the Stoic philosophers who counseled that pain could be mastered by the mind. In the age of science fiction, pain takes on new guises. It becomes a puzzle, a phenomenon to be manipulated, erased, or simulated. One of the most iconic moments on this theme is found in the film The Matrix, where reality itself is questioned, and pain is revealed as a product of perception. In that world, the body may be plugged into a digital illusion, yet the mind's suffering is real. When Neo, the protagonist, is wounded in the simulation, his pain is keen and undeniable. The body cannot live without the mind, Morpheus intones, and we are left to wonder, what is pain, if not a conversation between body and brain, between nerve and narrative? The garden of sensation is a fitting metaphor. For every soft touch, every moment of pleasure, pain is the counterpoint, a necessary contrast that defines the boundaries of comfort. Imagine for a moment the sharp prick of a rose's thorn. The nerves in your fingertip flare into life, sending a cascade of signals racing up the arm, through the spinal cord, into the brain. There, the sensation is deciphered, interpreted, and labelled pain. Yet, remarkably, the experience of pain is not a simple reflection of injury. It is shaped by context, expectation, memory, and emotion. In some cultures, pain is seen as a rite of passage, a test of will and endurance. The Maasai of East Africa, for example, have traditional ceremonies in which young warriors are expected to endure pain without flinching, their stoicism a mark of maturity. In other traditions, pain is a pathway to ecstatic vision, as in the rituals of certain ascetic monks who seek transcendence through self-denial. Even in the modern world, athletes push their bodies to the limits, embracing the burn as a sign of growth and achievement. Pain, it seems, is not just a warning, but a message, one whose meaning is shaped by the stories we tell ourselves. As you meander further into the garden, let your thoughts drift to the ways pain is portrayed in the stories we share, especially in the realm of science fiction. The Matrix is only one example among many. In Star Trek, the Vulcan mind meld allows one being to experience the sensations of another, blurring the boundaries between self and other, pain and empathy. In Philip K. Dick's imagined futures, pain is both a weapon and a commodity, something to be bought, sold, or inflicted at a distance. In these tales, pain is never just a physiological response. It is a marker of humanity, a bond between individuals, a challenge to be overcome. Yet, for all its cultural weight, pain remains a deeply personal experience. No two people feel pain in exactly the same way. The same injury may cause agony in one person and barely a twinge in another. Scientists have long puzzled over this variability. Part of the answer lies in genetics. Some individuals are born with mutations that make them unusually sensitive to pain, while others, due to rare conditions, feel almost none at all. But the story does not end there. Psychology plays a profound role. Fear, anxiety, and past trauma can amplify pain, while distraction, reassurance, or belief can dampen it. In the labyrinth of the brain, pain is both a fact and a fiction, a sensation and a story. In the world of clinical medicine, this complexity is a daily reality. Doctors and nurses learn to navigate the delicate dance of assessing pain, a task made all the more difficult by its subjectivity. There is no machine that can measure pain with perfect accuracy. Instead, clinicians rely on faces twisted in discomfort, on whispered words, on the silent grimace of a patient biting back tears. Scales from 1 to 10, faces from smiling to sobbing. These are the tools we use to bridge the gap between one person's suffering and another's understanding. Yet pain resists easy categorization. Chronic pain, in particular, can linger long after injury has healed, a ghostly echo that refuses to be exorcised. Return now to the garden. The moon has risen higher, and the interplay of shadow and light grows more intricate. In the distance, a nightingale sings, a melody sweet enough to make you forget, for a moment, the sting of the thorns. This is another facet of pain's paradox, its ability to fade, to soften, to be soothed by music, by warmth, by the gentle touch of a friend. The same pathways that carry pain can also carry comfort. The brain, that master illusionist, can modulate the signals it receives, amplifying or diminishing sensation according to its own mysterious priorities. It is this very malleability that has inspired both awe and fear. In dystopian fiction, pain is often wielded as a tool of control. In George Orwell's 1984, the threat of pain is the ultimate lever, breaking the will and reshaping reality itself. The mere anticipation of suffering can be enough to force confession, compliance, surrender. And yet, there are also tales of those who resist, who find in pain a source of strength, a reminder of their own indomitable spirit. In Frank Herbert's Dune, young Paul Atreides is tested by the Reverend Mother with the Gom Jabbar, his hand thrust into a box that simulates excruciating pain. To yield is to die, to endure is to transcend. Fear is the mind killer, Paul recites, and in those words lies an ancient truth. Pain is not merely a sensation, but a crucible in which character is forged. Science, too, has long been fascinated by the mechanisms of pain. How, exactly, does the body translate injury into experience? The answer lies in a vast network of specialized nerves, nociceptors, scattered like sentinels throughout the skin, the muscles, the organs. These nerves are tuned to detect extremes: heat, cold, pressure, chemicals released by damaged cells. When activated, they send electrical signals racing toward the spinal cord, where they are relayed to the brain. But the journey is not a simple one. Along the way, these signals can be amplified or dampened, filtered by gates that respond to mood, attention, even the expectations of the mind. This interplay between body and brain is what gives pain its protean quality. In some cases, the mind can conjure pain from thin air, a phenomenon known as phantom limb pain, in which amputees feel sensations in a limb that is no longer there. In others, intense focus or belief can all but erase pain, as in tales of battle or childbirth, where wounds go unnoticed until the danger has passed. Placebo and nocebo, expectation and dread, these are the secret levers that modulate the machinery of suffering. In our garden, this means that every thorn has the potential to be either a torment or a teacher. The same prick that draws blood can also draw attention, reminding you to move more carefully, to cherish the moments of ease. The petals, for their part, offer not just relief, but perspective, a reminder that pain is not the only sensation available to you, that comfort and joy are woven from the same threads. Cultures throughout history have sought to make sense of pain, to give it meaning and context. Some have seen it as punishment, others as purification. The medieval flagellants whipped themselves in hopes of divine favor. The Stoics counseled acceptance and endurance. In more recent times, pain has become a field of study, a phenomenon to be mapped, measured, understood. The word pain itself comes from the Latin poena, meaning punishment or penalty, yet in modern parlance it is more often a puzzle to be solved. Scientists peer into brains lit up by fMRI scans, tracing the pathways of suffering, seeking the elusive boundary between sensation and perception. And just as the experience of pain varies from person to person, so too does our response to it. Some seek to master pain through meditation or mindfulness, training the mind to observe sensation without judgment. Others turn to the pharmacopoeia, an array of drugs and interventions designed to blunt, block, or erase pain altogether. The quest to conquer pain is as old as medicine itself, from the poppy dreams of ancient healers to the cutting-edge techniques of modern anesthesiology. Yet even as we strive to banish pain, we cannot help but be fascinated by it. In art and story, in ritual and myth, pain is an ever-present theme. It is the fire that burns away pretense, the crucible that reveals our true selves. In the virtual worlds of science fiction, we imagine futures where pain can be dialed up or down at will, where suffering is a choice rather than a fate. But even in these imagined realities, pain persists as a test, a warning, a reminder of what it means to be alive. As you linger in the moonlit garden, let your mind dwell on the paradox of pain. It is both a curse and a gift, a burden and a blessing. It marks the boundaries of the self, yet connects us to others in empathy and understanding. In the next moments we will follow the thread of sensation deeper, unraveling the mysteries of how pain is woven into the fabric of the nervous system, how it shapes our experience of the world, and how, sometimes, it can be transformed. For now, let the night air soothe the sting of the thorns, and let the promise of further discovery carry you gently onward into the heart of the enigma. Within the vast cathedral of the human body, a single whisper, a prick, a burn, a twist of flesh, can awaken an ancient, intricate machinery. A sliver of glass pierces skin, and, in that fleeting instant, a spark leaps from the periphery to the very heart of consciousness. How does pain, in all its immediacy and complexity, wind its way from the material world into the realm of sensation? To trace its journey is to wander a labyrinth of exquisite design, where each corridor is a nerve fibre, each chamber a synaptic gate, and each intersection a riddle inscribed in the language of molecules and electricity. Let us begin at the outermost margin, where the skin meets the world. Embedded within this living shield are sentinels, nociceptors, specialized sensory neurons devoted to the detection of harm. These are not mere passive observers. They are guardians, ever vigilant, equipped to discern mechanical stress, damaging heat, extreme cold, and the chemical whispers of inflammation. The nociceptor's membrane bristles with molecular detectors, ion channels that open in response to threats. With the touch of a sharp thorn or the sear of a flame, these channels swing wide, allowing a rush of sodium and calcium ions into the nerve ending. The electrical potential across the membrane shifts, generating an action potential, a pulse of electricity, a command to alert the central command. The action potential is an all-or-none signal, a binary event that surges along the length of a nerve fibre like a wave. It is a marvel of biological engineering, for it can regenerate itself at each node of Ranvier, leaping forward with unflagging strength. Some nociceptors, those with myelinated A-delta fibers, conduct this signal with remarkable speed, their axons sheathed in fatty insulation that allows the current to jump from node to node. The pain they carry is sharp, immediate, well localized, the sting of a needle or the snap of a sprained ankle. Others, the unmyelinated C fibers, are slower, their signals crawling like a tide. These evoke the dull, aching, lingering pain that follows, the throb after the cut, the soreness after the burn. The journey of pain is, however, not merely an electrical event. It is a relay, a whisper passed from hand to hand. As the action potential reaches the end of the nociceptor's axon, it arrives at a synapse, a narrow gulf separating one neuron from the next. Here, the electrical signal must be translated into a chemical message. Vesicles packed with neurotransmitter molecules, such as glutamate and substance P, fuse with the membrane, spilling their contents into the synaptic cleft. These molecules drift across the tiny gap, binding to receptors on the postsynaptic neuron, and thus perpetuating the signal onward. The first great synaptic relay occurs in the dorsal horn of the spinal cord, that branching tree of grey matter nestled within the vertebral column. The dorsal horn is not a mere switchboard, it is a stage for drama and modulation. Here, incoming signals from nociceptors are sorted, amplified, or dampened before being relayed upward. Some interneurons release their own neurotransmitters, endorphins, enkephalins, gamma-aminobutyric acid, to modulate the traffic, shaping the very perception of pain before it ascends to higher centers. From the dorsal horn, pain signals ascend via two principal pathways, the spinothalamic tract and the spinoreticular tract. The spinothalamic tract is a fast, direct route to the thalamus, the brain's grand relay station. The spinoreticular tract, slower and more meandering, weaves through the reticular formation, touching upon centers responsible for arousal and emotional response. These pathways do not merely inform the brain of injury, they recruit the whole being, awakening attention, summoning emotion, preparing the body to respond. The thalamus, perched deep within the brain, sits at the crossroads of sensation. It receives the converging pain signals, sorts them, and dispatches them onward to diverse territories. the somatosensory cortex, where the pain is mapped to a specific region of the body, the insular cortex, where the gut-wrenching quality of pain is felt, the anterior cingulate cortex, where pain acquires its emotional timbre. Here, pain is not merely registered, it is experienced, coloured with anxiety, dread, relief, or resignation. The labyrinth of nociception thus opens into vast chambers of memory and emotion, where every ache and pang is entwined with the tapestry of life. But the journey is not a one-way street. The brain, for all its vulnerability, is not a passive recipient of pain. Descending pathways reach down from the periaqueductal grey of the midbrain through the rostroventral medulla back to the spinal cord. These projections release their own modulators, serotonin, norepinephrine, endogenous opioids, dampening or even silencing the incoming pain messages. This is the root of pain's mutability, how in moments of great crisis a wounded soldier might scarcely feel a wound, or how, in the quiet of a sleepless night, a minor ache can grow monstrous. To further illuminate this labyrinth, let us walk its corridors with an idea both elegant and elusive, the gate control theory of pain. Proposed in the mid-20th century by Ronald Melsack and Patrick Wall, this theory posits that pain is not a mere readout of physical injury. Rather, it is shaped by a dynamic interplay between different classes of nerve fibers, interneurons, and descending influences from the brain. According to the gate control model, the dorsal horn of the spinal cord contains a metaphorical gate that can amplify or diminish pain signals before they ascend to awareness. Fast-conducting A-beta fibers, which normally transmit signals of touch and pressure rather than pain, can activate inhibitory interneurons in the dorsal horn. When you rub a bruised shin or clutch a stubbed toe, these touch fibers flood the gate with their own signals, closing it partially to the slower, pain-carrying C fibers. The result is a reduction in perceived pain, a tactile balm that soothes, if only briefly. The gate is also subject to the brain's descending control. Expectation, anxiety, and attention can open it wider or clamp it shut. This model does not fully solve the enigma of pain, but it renders the labyrinth comprehensible. It explains why pain is not a fixed quantity, why two people with similar injuries may report vastly different degrees of suffering, why chronic pain can persist long after the tissue has healed, and why pain can sometimes be conjured by the mind alone, in the absence of any physical cause. Within the synaptic chambers of the dorsal horn, neurotransmitters perform their intricate ballet. Glutamate is the principal excitatory messenger, binding to AMPA and NMDA receptors on the postsynaptic membrane, opening ion channels and propagating the pain signal. Substance P, a neuropeptide, heightens the response, prolonging and intensifying the sensation. With persistent stimulation, the dorsal horn neurons can become sensitized. Their response to pain is amplified, and the threshold for activation drops. This phenomenon, known as central sensitization, lies at the heart of chronic pain syndromes, where the very circuitry of pain becomes hyperexcitable, a labyrinth with no exit. Yet the labyrinth is threaded with hope as well as suffering. Descending fibers from the medulla release serotonin and norepinephrine, activating inhibitory interneurons that release endogenous opioids, morphine's ancient kin. These molecules bind to opioid receptors on the presynaptic terminals of nociceptors, blocking the release of pain neurotransmitters and closing the gate at its source. It is here, in this molecular dance, that the power of expectation and belief, of placebos and rituals, can sometimes summon real relief. The mind, through mysterious descending pathways, can reach down and shape the very fabric of pain. Consider for a moment the phenomenon of referred pain. Here the labyrinth reveals its strange geometry. Pain from a heart attack may be felt in the left arm or jaw, and a diseased gallbladder may send aching signals to the right shoulder. The explanation lies in the convergence of visceral and somatic afferents on the same dorsal horn neurons. The brain, seeking to localize the threat, is misled by the shared circuitry, tracing the pain to a familiar landmark rather than its true source. Thus, the labyrinth of nociception is not only complex in its pathways, but also in its maps, projecting pain into the wrong chambers, fooling even the most attentive mind. As we follow the nerve fibers upward, their individual threads merge into tracts, white matter highways spiraling toward the brainstem and thalamus. Here, new synapses await, new combinations of neurotransmitters and receptors, new opportunities for modulation. Pain signals synapse in the ventral, posterior, lateral nucleus of the thalamus before fanning out to the cortex, where the tapestry of sensation is woven in exquisite detail. In the somatosensory cortex, a homunculus, a distorted map of the body, ensures that the sting of a pinprick on your finger is not confused with a cramp in your calf. Each region of the cortex is tuned to a different patch of skin, a different joint, a different muscle. Pain is thus localized, given shape and contour, painted in the colors of intensity and quality. Yet even as the signal ascends, it is shaped by context, by memory, by mood, by expectation. The anterior cingulate cortex, seat of emotional salience, colors pain with suffering or stoicism, dread or relief. The insular cortex, deep within the lateral sulcus, registers the internal state, the visceral, gut-level aspect of pain. Pain, therefore, is not a mere sensory input. It is an experience, a perception, a story told by the brain to itself. In the labyrinth's deepest chambers lie yet more mysteries. Why does chronic pain linger long after wounds have healed? Why do some pains, like those of phantom limbs, persist in the absence of any tissue at all? Here the circuitry itself is altered. Neurons become hyperexcitable. Synaptic connections are rewired. Pain is generated not by injury, but by the memory of injury, by the ghostly echo of lost sensation. The labyrinth, once a warning system, becomes a prison, its gates stuck open, its corridors reverberating with signals that have outlived their purpose. At each turn, new molecules are discovered, TRPV1 receptors that sense heat and capsaicin, sodium channels that determine the speed of nerve conduction, cytokines and chemokines that recruit the immune system to the site of injury. Each discovery adds a new thread to the labyrinth, a new puzzle piece to the enigma of nociception. For all its complexity, the system is not infallible. There are dead ends, conditions where pain is felt but no injury can be found, or where injuries go unheeded because the signaling machinery is defective or silenced. There are syndromes of congenital insensitivity to pain, where the labyrinth is quiet, its alarms forever muted. Those who live with such conditions are not blessed but cursed, for pain is, in the end, a guardian, a signal to withdraw, to heal, to survive. And so, as we wander the labyrinth of nociception, we come to appreciate its paradox. It is a machinery built for suffering, yet essential for life. Its corridors are shaped by evolution, refined by experience, haunted by memory. The journey from skin to brain is not a straight path, but a winding maze, filled with gates and guards, crossroads and cul-de-sacs, each turn revealing new mysteries, each chamber echoing with questions that have not yet found their answers. Beyond the dorsal horn, beyond the thalamus, the signal continues, shaped and reshaped by myriad hands. In this labyrinth, the threads of biology and experience are intertwined, inseparable, coiling into the very fabric of what it means to feel. And still, there are deeper passages to explore, regions where pain is transformed, refracted, and perhaps in time transcended. The enigma persists, inviting us onward into darkness and light, into the next chamber of discovery. Among the dim-lit corridors of medical history, there lingers a peculiar air, a scent of camphor, old leather, and the nervous anticipation of discovery. It is here, in these chambers of curiosity, that the story of pain's study truly unfolds. The instruments of torment and inquiry have changed shape and substance over centuries, but the essence of their purpose endures: to probe the boundaries of suffering, to examine its anatomy, and to reveal the mechanisms by which the body and mind register the sharp, the burning, the aching message of harm. Long before the rise of laboratories, before the white coat and the ethics committee, pain was an enigma both feared and revered. The earliest physicians, scribes with their reed pens and clay tablets, catalogued pain as a visitation, sometimes a punishment from capricious gods, sometimes a sign of imbalanced humors. Their tools were crude, their observations clouded by myth. Yet even the ancients, with their meagre means, displayed a relentless fascination for the nature of agony. Hippocrates, in his treatises, observed the pain of wounds and the fever heat of inflamed joints, hinting at the possibility of underlying causes, though his world was one where the four humours danced in unseen turmoil, and pain was but their harbinger. With the dawn of the Renaissance, the shroud of superstition began to lift. Leonardo da Vinci, ever the anatomist, sketched the nerves of the body with exquisite care, and in his quiet notes he wondered at the transmission of pain. The great Vesalius, dissecting the forbidden dead by candlelight, traced the threads of sensation to the spinal cord, that mysterious white column within the vertebral vault. They possessed no electricity, no antiseptics, yet their hands and eyes were guided by a restless urge to map the terrain of suffering. It is tempting to imagine these early anatomists as dispassionate, yet the historical record betrays a certain empathy, a haunted humility before the agony of others. For to study pain is to glimpse the rawest expression of being alive, the writhing animal, the wounded soldier, the crying child. Their suffering is the price of our knowledge. As centuries rolled forward, the science of pain shed its mystical skin. By the 18th century, experiments in sensation and nerve function became possible, albeit by methods that would today chill the blood. Italian physician Luigi Galvani, famed for his experiments with frogs' legs, discovered that the application of electrical sparks to exposed nerves caused the dead muscle to twitch, an eerie marionette show of involuntary motion. Galvani's animal electricity was not strictly speaking pain, but it hinted that sensation was a matter of wiring, a message carried along living filaments, not a vapor or spirit. Others were less gentle. In the age before anesthesia, surgeons observed the reactions of patients, grimaces, cries, the sudden clutch of hands, to learn which tissues were sensitive and which insensate. The skin, the periosteum of bone, the pulp of teeth, all proved exquisitely responsive to the knife. The organs of the abdomen, surprisingly, yielded less complaint when cut, but provoked agony when distended or inflamed. These observations, harrowing as they were, formed the earliest maps of the body's pain landscape. The 19th century brought a new clarity, and with it, new torment. In the quest to define the machinery of pain, scientists devised ingenious, sometimes appalling tools. The famed pain induction experiments began, controlled provocations of suffering, conducted in the name of understanding. One of the simplest devices was the mechanical algometer, a calibrated screw or rod pressed with increasing force against the skin until the subject signaled pain. The threshold at which discomfort began and the point at which it became intolerable were carefully noted, forming the first quantitative measures of pain sensitivity. It was a time when the boundaries of ethics and necessity were thin and shifting. Volunteers, often medical students, submitted to the prick of needles, the exposure of bare skin to heated metal, the immersion of hands into buckets of icy water. The cold pressor test, as it came to be known, remains a staple of laboratory pain research even today. In this test, the subject's hand or forearm is submerged in water cooled to near freezing, and the time until pain becomes unbearable is measured. This simple method, stark as it is, has yielded insights into the interplay between physical sensation and psychological state, the ways in which distraction, expectation, and even suggestion can modulate our experience of pain. But the most profound shift of all arrived not with a new tool, but with a new idea, that pain could be studied, dissected, and understood as a phenomenon of both body and mind. In the late 19th century, Sir Charles Scott Sherrington, working with the spinal cords of dogs and monkeys, mapped the reflex pathways by which pain signals travel from the periphery to the central nervous system. Sherrington's meticulous experiments revealed that certain regions of the cord, when stimulated, produced flinching or withdrawal, even in the absence of conscious awareness. Pain, it seemed, was not merely a matter of sensation, but of reflex and response, a primal choreography programmed into the very fabric of the nervous system. The 20th century ushered in a new era of sophistication. The electrified laboratory replaced the candlelit dissection chamber. With the invention of the electroencephalogram, EEG, researchers could for the first time listen in on the electrical whispers of the brain during pain. When a subject's skin was pricked or burned, the EEG traced the flicker of neural activity across the cortical surface, a signature as unique as a fingerprint, revealing the brain's engagement with suffering. Soon after, the development of microelectrodes enabled scientists to record the firing of individual neurons in animals subjected to noxious stimuli. These pain fibers, now known as nociceptors, were found to transmit signals along specific pathways distinct from those carrying touch or warmth. The work of Hungarian neurophysiologist János Szentagotai and others traced these pathways with ever finer resolution, mapping the journey of pain from the skin through the spinal cord to the thalamus and onward to the sensory cortex. Yet for all the progress, a persistent myth clung like a shadow that animals, unlike humans, did not truly feel pain. This notion, rooted in the writings of René Descartes, held sway for centuries. Descartes, observing the mechanical predictability of animal behavior, concluded that non-human creatures were automata, elaborately wound clocks, incapable of suffering as we do. Their cries and struggles, he argued, were mere reflexes, empty of feeling. This belief provided a convenient justification for the vivisections and experiments of the age. Dogs and monkeys, rabbits and frogs were cut and probed in the name of science, their suffering dismissed as illusory. Yet even as the scalpels flashed, some voices dissented. The philosopher Jeremy Bentham, writing at the close of the 18th century, posed a question that would echo through the ages. The question is not, can they reason, nor can they talk, but can they suffer? In time, the evidence became overwhelming. Animals, it was found, display all the hallmarks of pain: withdrawal, vocalization, avoidance of harm, and, crucially, learning from painful experience. The anatomy of their nervous systems, from the simplest fish to the most complex mammal, contains the necessary machinery: nociceptors, spinal tracts, central processing centers. The same chemical messengers that transmit pain in humans, substance P, glutamate, prostaglandins, are found in abundance throughout the animal kingdom. Modern studies have gone further still. Using the refined tools of today, functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, positron emission tomography, PET, and optogenetics, scientists have illuminated the neural circuits of pain in awake, behaving animals. The patterns of brain activation observed in rats, monkeys, and even birds during painful events closely mirror those seen in humans. When a rat's paw is pricked, regions of its cerebral cortex light up in synchronous waves, just as our own brains do in response to injury. When a monkey winces at a hot plate, Its thalamus and insular cortex pulse with activity, the unmistakable signature of conscious distress. The convergence of evidence has forced a reckoning. The myth of the insensate animal has crumbled under the weight of data, replaced by a sobering recognition of shared vulnerability. The tools we once wielded to dissect pain in others have become instruments of empathy, compelling us to refine our methods and minimize suffering. But what of the tools themselves? The modern arsenal is vast and varied, each device a window into a different aspect of pain. The mechanical algometer has evolved into sleek, digital pressure sensors, capable of mapping sensitivity with sub-millimeter precision. Thermal stimulators deliver precisely calibrated pulses of heat or cold, while laser stimulators evoke pain without physical contact, allowing for exquisite control over intensity and duration. Electrical stimulation, once the domain of Galvani's crude spark, is now delivered by computer-driven stimulators, targeting specific nerves or brain regions with pinpoint accuracy. Transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, a relative newcomer, uses focused magnetic fields to modulate the neural circuits of pain, both for research and increasingly for therapy. Perhaps the most transformative tool of all is neuroimaging. The advent of fMRI has rendered the living brain transparent to our gaze, revealing the choreography of pain in real time. When a subject experiences pain in the scanner, a cascade of activity sweeps across the so-called pain matrix, a constellation of regions including the somatosensory cortex, the anterior cingulate, the insula, and the prefrontal cortex. Each of these regions contributes a thread to the tapestry of pain: the raw intensity, the emotional coloring, the memory of past wounds, the anticipation of future harm. With these tools, researchers can now watch as pain is constructed from its constituent parts: sensation, emotion, meaning. They can observe the modulation of pain by attention, by fear, by expectation. They can see the brain's response to placebo, to distraction, to hope. Yet the tools are not without their limitations. Pain, for all its physical basis, remains a subjective experience, one that eludes simple measurement. The most advanced scanner cannot read the ache in a lover's heart, nor the dull throb of grief. The most sensitive electrode cannot translate the poetry of suffering, the stories we tell ourselves about what hurts and why. There is a gulf, always, between the map and the territory, between the image on the screen and the agony in the flesh. Still, the pursuit continues. New frontiers beckon. Molecular probes that light up the chemical storm of pain in real time, wearable sensors that track the rhythms of suffering in daily life, artificial intelligence algorithms that sift the whispers of nerves for hidden patterns. Each tool brings us closer to a full accounting of pain's many faces, yet each reveals new complexities, new mysteries. The story of pain is thus a story of ingenuity and humility, of tools fashioned to probe the depths, and of the recognition that suffering, in its infinite variety, is both a universal and deeply personal phenomenon. The laboratory, for all its precision, can only approximate the inner landscape of agony. Yet with each experiment, each carefully measured threshold, we peel back another layer of mystery. As the instruments hum and the scanners glow, a question lingers. What, in the end, are we measuring? Is pain a signal, a warning, a memory, a prophecy? How do the tools of science capture the ghostly passage from injury to awareness, from stimulus to suffering? The answers shimmer at the edge of understanding, beckoning us onward toward the next chamber of discovery, where the boundaries between sensation, perception, and meaning grow ever more porous and strange. There is a hush that settles over the world when pain is mentioned, a subtle shift in the air, as though every living thing pauses for a moment to acknowledge its presence. Pain is at once so intimate and so universal, a silent companion that has walked beside every human being who has ever lived. Even now, as you lie still, drifting toward sleep, the memory of pain, whether physical, emotional, or something in between, lingers in some corner of your mind, woven into the tapestry of your experience. It is inescapable, and yet it is not wholly a foe. Tonight, we linger in the shadowed halls of pain, not to recoil, but to examine the strange, harrowing harmony it brings to our existence. To begin, let us consider the necessity of pain. It is tempting to imagine a world without it, a world where bodies suffer no injury, where heartbreak and grief are but legends from a distant, darker time. Such visions populate the dreams of philosophers and the prayers of the desperate, but nature, in her silent wisdom, has bound pain to life for a reason. The ancient philosopher Epicurus mused that pain is an evil, yet even he acknowledged its role as a messenger. For pain is not merely the shriek of nerves or the ache of loss. It is a language, one that speaks urgently of harm and compels us to act. Within the body, pain is a sentinel, forever vigilant. The prick of a thorn, the burn of a flame, the twist of an ankle, these are not punishments, but warnings. The neurons that carry these signals do so with astonishing speed and precision, each electric surge a plea. Remove the hand, tend the wound, seek shelter. Without pain, the body is unmoored from consequence. There are rare individuals, scattered through history, who were born without the capacity to feel pain, a condition known as congenital insensitivity to pain. At first, it seems a blessing. Yet these people often suffer injuries they cannot sense, wounds that fester unseen, bones that break and heal crookedly. Many do not survive childhood. It is a stark reminder that pain, in its raw necessity, is a guardian of life. But pain is not confined to the flesh. In the realm of the mind, it assumes guises more subtle and complex. Emotional pain, that uninvited guest who sits heavy on the chest, is equally vital. Grief and heartbreak, shame and longing, these are signals too, though their meanings are less direct. When the tribe was scattered across the ancient savannah, to be separated from one's kin was to face mortal peril. Loneliness became a wound, a gnawing ache that pushed our ancestors to seek reunion. Even now, in crowded cities and quiet bedrooms, the sting of rejection or the ache of loss reminds us of our need for connection, for belonging, for love. Emotional pain is the echo of evolution's lessons, reverberating through the corridors of memory and desire. There is, woven through all this, a strange poetry. Pain shapes the boundaries of our lives, and yet it also binds us together. It is the wellspring of empathy, the bridge across which one soul reaches out to another. To witness another's suffering is to feel the stirrings of recognition within oneself, the quickening of the heart, the tightening of the throat. This is not merely metaphor. Neuroscience has revealed that the same regions of the brain that process our own pain are activated when we witness pain in others. The anterior cingulate cortex, the insula, these are the neural theatres where empathy is staged. Through this shared circuitry, pain becomes a thread that ties us to one another, urging us to comfort, to heal, to help. From this biological root grows the flowering of compassion. Throughout history, the recognition of shared suffering has given rise to acts of astonishing selflessness. In times of disaster and war, strangers risk their lives for those they have never met, compelled by the simple, profound truth that pain is universal. Religious traditions, too, have placed suffering at the heart of their teachings. The Buddha's first noble truth is that life is dukkha, suffering. Christianity holds up the image of the suffering Christ, a God made human precisely to feel pain. In these stories, pain is not merely endured, it is transformed, made meaningful by the love and mercy it evokes. Yet pain is not only a teacher or a bridge. It is also a source of creativity, a muse that has inspired some of humanity's greatest works. In the flickering light of ancient fires, the first stories were told, tales of loss and longing, of wounds both seen and unseen. The Epic of Gilgamesh, among the oldest stories we possess, is at its heart a meditation on grief and mortality. Across centuries and continents, poets and artists have returned to the theme of pain, mining its depths for wisdom and beauty. Consider the paintings of Frida Kahlo, whose canvases are haunted by the spectre of her own physical and emotional suffering. Each brushstroke is a testament to endurance, a vivid translation of agony into colour and form. Or listen to the music of Beethoven, who composed some of his greatest works while grappling with deafness and despair. The slow movement of his late string quartet, Opus 132, was titled A Convalescent's Holy Song of Thanksgiving to the Divinity, written after a grave illness. The music aches and yearns, its harmonies rising and falling like breaths drawn in pain. Through art, pain is given shape, made comprehensible, and, in some mysterious way, redeemed. Literature, too, is a vessel for suffering. In the pages of Dostoevsky, Virginia Woolf, and Toni Morrison, we find lives marked by trauma and loss, characters who stumble through darkness in search of solace. The written word becomes a mirror, reflecting our own wounds and allowing us to glimpse the humanity of others. Even stories meant for children do not shy from pain. In Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales, tears fall like rain, and hearts are broken as often as they are mended. These stories do not seek to protect us from pain, but to teach us how to bear it, how to transform suffering into resilience and sorrow into understanding. Music, perhaps more than any other art, captures the ineffable quality of pain. The blues, born from the suffering of enslaved peoples in America, is a genre built on lamentation. Its melodies bend and wail, its lyrics tell of hardship and heartache, yet within this sorrow there is a fierce vitality, a refusal to be silenced. In the soaring notes of a requiem or the mournful hum of a lullaby, we find pain distilled and transmuted, made bearable through beauty. Even in the abstract forms of sculpture and dance, pain is present. The contorted figures of Rodin's The Burghers of Calais are frozen in the throes of anguish, their bodies heavy with dread and sacrifice. In ballet, the dancer's body strains and bends, pushing past the limits of endurance. Each leap and turn is a negotiation with pain, an embrace of both its peril and its potential. Through these forms, we are reminded that to be human is to be vulnerable, to move through the world with bodies and minds that can break but also heal. The universality of pain is a paradox. It is deeply personal. No two people experience it in exactly the same way, yet it is also the great equalizer. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "No feeling is final. Pain passes, transforms, recedes, only to return in another guise. In this ebb and flow there is a rhythm, a music that underlies all of life. For every birth there is labour. For every love, the risk of loss. For every triumph, the shadow of failure. To exist is to risk pain, and to risk pain is to live fully." Philosophers have long wrestled with the meaning of suffering. Friedrich Nietzsche, never one to shy from the darker corners of existence, declared that to live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. He saw in pain a crucible, a forge in which strength and wisdom are tempered. Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Holocaust, wrote movingly of the capacity to find purpose even in the midst of unimaginable torment. For Frankl, pain was not an obstacle to be overcome, but a challenge to be faced, a question posed by life itself, demanding an answer. Yet not all pain is ennobling. There is suffering that is senseless, random, cruel. Disease, disaster, violence. These are the faces of pain that defy explanation. In the face of such agony, words often fail. And yet even here, in the bleakest hours, pain calls forth acts of solidarity and courage. The history of medicine is, in many ways, a history of our attempts to relieve pain. From the earliest herbal remedies to the marvels of anesthesia, humanity has struggled to ease suffering, not only for ourselves but for others. This impulse, born of empathy, is itself a testament to the power of pain to shape our moral universe. In the hidden corners of the world, there are rituals devoted entirely to the acknowledgement of suffering. In some cultures, communal grief is expressed through song and dance, through wailing and keening, through the sharing of stories. These acts are not merely cathartic, they are affirmations of belonging. To weep together is to declare we are not alone. Pain, when shared, becomes lighter, its burden distributed across many shoulders. And so, as night deepens, we find ourselves at the threshold of a remarkable truth. Pain is not simply a flaw in the design, nor a punishment to be escaped. It is a vital thread in the fabric of life, a force that shapes and binds, that wounds but also heals. It is the price of consciousness, the shadow that makes joy visible. In the poetry of Rumi, pain is the pickaxe that breaks open the heart, letting in the light. Each scar, whether visible or hidden, is a testament to survival, a mark of the journey undertaken. As you settle into quietude, imagine for a moment the vast chorus of humanity, each voice unique, each story marked by its own heartbreaks and healings. Across continents and centuries, the song of pain rises and falls, sometimes a whisper, sometimes a cry. It is a song of warning and of hope, of loss and of love. Within its melody, we find the essence of what it means to be alive, to feel deeply, to care fiercely, to endure, and ultimately to connect. Pain does not ask permission. It arrives unbidden, abrupt as thunder, or slow as winter. Yet it is within our power to respond, to transform agony into understanding, to reach out to another, to create beauty from suffering. The world is filled with small acts of kindness, gestures that ease the ache for a moment, a hand held in silence, a word of comfort, a song softly sung. In these acts, the harrowing harmony of pain is met with the quiet grace of compassion. Night advances, and the world grows still, yet the echoes of pain linger, reverberating through the chambers of memory and dream. Perhaps in this hush you can sense the wisdom pain has given you, the empathy it has kindled, the moments of art and connection it has shaped. Let these echoes remain gentle companions as you drift ever deeper, their music unresolved, their poetry unfinished, carrying you onward into the mystery of another day. As our journey through the delicate dance of pain gently drifts to a close, we linger in the soft glow of understanding, like a comet tail fading into the hush of space. May this quiet reflection cradle your thoughts as you rest, and when you awaken, return with wonder for more Dreamtime tales of the universe's gentle mysteries.